Pate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudire. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. So today we're continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 13. We're going to be discussing texts 32 and 33. The chapter is entitled Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. So we'll do 32 first. That's not up on the board. Please respond. Tata sadhaya bhadram te. Tata sadhaya bhadram te. Atmanam suprajam nripa. Atmanam suprajam nripa. Istas te putra kamasya. Istaste putra kamasya. Putram dasyati yajnabhu. Putram dhasyati yajnabhu. Tata sadhaya bhadram te. Atmanam suprajam nripa. Istaste putra kamasya. Putram dhasyati yajnabhu. Word for word translation. Tata, therefore, sadhaya, execute the sacrifice to get. Badram, good fortune. Te, to you. Atmanam, your own. Suprajam, good son. Nripa, O king. Ista, being worshipped. Te, by you. Putra kamasya, desiring to have a son. Putram, a son. Dasyati, he will deliver. Yajna, the Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice. Please hear the translation. O king, we wish all good fortune for you. You have no son, but if you pray at once to the Supreme Lord and ask for a son, and if you execute the sacrifice for that purpose, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, the Supreme Personality of Godhead will fulfill your desire. Text 33. Tata swabhagadeyani grahishyanti divaukasha yad yagnya purusha sakshad apatyaya harirvritaha. Tata swabhagadeyani grahishyanti divaukasha yad yagnya purusha sakshad apatyaya harirvritaha. Tata swabhagadeyani grahishyanti divaukasha yad yagnya purusha sakshad apatyaya harirvritaha. तथा स्वभागधेयानि ध्येयसन्ति विभावसः यज्ञपुरुषक्षाक्षात् विभावसः यज्ञपुरुष साक्षात् अपत्याय हरिवृता तथा स्वभागधेयानि ग्रहीष्यन्ति दिवकशः यज्ञपुरुष साक्षात् अपत्याय हरिवृता तथा स्वभागधेयानि तथा thereupon swabhagadeyani, their shares in the sacrifice, grahishyanti, will accept, diva okasha, all the demigods, yet because yajna purusha, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, sakshat, directly, apatyaya, for the purpose of a son, Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vritaha, is invited. Please hear the translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. When Hari, the Supreme Enjoyer of all sacrifices, is invited to fulfill your desire for a son, all the demigods will come with him and take their shares in the sacrifice. Please repeat. When Hari, the Supreme Enjoyer of all sacrifices, is invited to fulfill your desire for a son, all the demigods will come with him and take their shares in the sacrifice. Purport. Whenever a sacrifice is performed, it is meant for satisfying Lord Vishnu, the enjoyer of the fruits of all sacrifices. And when Lord Vishnu agrees to come to a sacrificial arena, all the demigods naturally follow their master, and their shares are offered in such sacrifice. The conclusion is that the sacrifices performed are meant for Lord Vishnu, not for the demigod. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustate Devi Pranamami Hari Pre Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasad Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhakti Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Sampradam. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Charini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Karsha Kadeshtarini Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Nangayati Girim Yatpa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarini Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. Second. Today we're just continuing from where we left off from this descriptions of the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. So Maitreya is describing to Vidura about the different descendants, and he comes to King Anga. And King Anga didn't have any children. So the Brahmanas, they advised him, do a yajna and invite all the priests. So that's what he did. He invited all the priests and they started the yajna. They were chanting the mantras. But the demigods, they were not coming to accept the offering. So the priests, they told the king that, the demigods are not coming. And just in case you think it's our fault, it's not our fault. We're doing the mantras perfectly. All the ingredients, everything is pure. But somehow or other, the demigods are not coming. So the king went and asked his priest, he said, there must be some fault on my part. That is why the demigods are not coming. And so the sages said, yes, there is, in this life you are faultless, but in your previous life you have committed some offense, which is why the devatas, the demigods are not coming to accept. So here he says, what is the remedy for that? So he says, what you should do is you should now invite the Supreme Lord. So instead of just offering oblations to the demigods, worship, do a yajna for the Supreme Lord. And mention your desire. What was his desire? He wanted a son. But the son was not just for his sense gratification. He wanted a son so that he will have a child to rule over the kingdom on behalf of the Supreme Lord. So it's not just an ordinary son he wants. And we want a son, we want a child to deliver us. Like we heard Krishna Prabhu describing about what a putra is, to deliver us from the hell called. So, but we have those kind of desires. But Maharaj Anga, he wanted a son so that the son will rule over the kingdom on behalf of God, on behalf of. And there are many pastimes that we see of kings doing yajnas to beget a son. So this purport, Prabhupada describes. So. It says, whenever sacrifice is performed, it is meant for satisfying Lord Vishnu, the enjoyer of the fruits of all sacrifices. And when Lord Vishnu agrees to come to the sacrificial arena, all the demigods naturally follow their master. So it would be good to understand who are the demigods. How would you describe demigods? Or is there an example you can give? Manager. Okay. And that's, Srila Prabhupada explains it very simply. He says, The demigods are empowered as administrators of the material affairs. So there are many different, this material world has got, and I think the example is given, like in New Zealand, just to run a small country with 5 million people. How many different departments are there? Department heads, you have the government, and different ministries. And that's just to run one small country. So you can imagine all the countries in the world. And not just this world, but different materials. So the entire material creation, how many administrators you'd require. So these demigods are like that. They're empowered administrators. And they're sitting in a place when an election comes, things might change. Different people will occupy different posts. So like this, the demigods, they're all sitting on different posts, and different people, different living entities will take those posts. And like this, there are 33 million posts just to run this material world and to provide us all the necessities of life. And we are familiar with Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma's prayers. So he describes how these demigods, they're doing their duty. They're not doing it on their own accord. They're doing it because they're empowered by Krishna. So a few common verses we have heard from Brahma Samhita. Shrishti Shriti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Reka Jayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Icchanurupam Apiyasya Chateshta Tesha Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So Bengalis, they like doing Durga Puja. So it says here how Durga does the work of creation, destruction, and preservation. She's doing it according to Krishna's will. She's empowered by Krishna, and she's doing it according to what Krishna. And we're also generally a lot of materialists, they like to worship Lord Ganesh. He destroys all inauspiciousness, obstacles. And again, Lord Brahma explains, Yad pada pallavam yugam vinidaya kumbha dvande pranama samaye saganadi raja vignan vihantu malamasya jagatrayasya govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. He says, Lord Ganesh, he takes the lotus feet of Krishna on his head and on his tusks, and that gives him the power to destroy all the obstacles. So like this, all the 33 million demigods, they're all acting on behalf on the power. They're empowered by Krishna, and therefore they are acting. So who are the kind of people that worship the demigods? In Bhagavad Gita, it describes, Krishna describes who are the different people who worship the demigods. So it says, Kamaiste kritagyana prapadyante anya devata. Those whose intelligence has been stolen and who want material desires, they worship the demigods. We've seen in our own experience. Those who go to the demigods, they want something, material wealth, sun, property. They want to win an election, or they want their team to win in a game, in a match. So different people go to the demigods with these kind of different material desires. And why are they're considered less intelligent? And why are they considered less intelligent? Because they don't understand that the demigods, they're all parts of Krishna's body. They don't understand the demigods are just administrators. But there is a supreme person who is conducting all these affairs. So if you're smart, would you rather just go straight to the main person who's conducting the affairs, or these administrators who don't have, they're acting on behalf of that person? So a smart person would go straight to the source, to the boss. So the examples given is like how you supply food. If you want to supply food, you don't give, if you want to nourish your hands, you don't give food like chapatis to your hands or gulab jamuns to your hands. Take them in the mouth, it goes to the stomach, and then naturally all the different limbs are satisfied. We also hear the example of watering the root of a plant in order to nourish the entire plant. You don't water each leaf, each twig, or each branch. So like that, Krishna says the worship of the demigods, they're also worshipping me, but they're worshipping me in the wrong way, without understanding. So they want to worship the devatas in the right way. Then what do? You water the roots, you feed the stomach. You worship Krishna, and all the demigods get satisfied. And those who worship the demigods, what is the result that they get? So in Bhagavad Gita is described, Yanti Deva Vrata Deva, Yanti Vrata Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja, Yanti Madhya Jinopimam. Those who worship the demigods, they go to the planets of the demigods. And those who worship their ancestors, they go to the planet of the ancestors. And then there are those who worship ghosts, and they go to the planet of the ghosts. And those who worship Krishna, they go to Krishna. But they don't understand. So the worshippers, the demigods, they might think that, yes, we can go to the heavenly planets, we can go to the planets of the demigods, we can enjoy so much material opulence. But then Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita again, A Brahma Bhuvanan Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna. Whichever planet you go to, higher planets, lower planets, you still will have to take birth again. You still birth, death, old age. Old age, you can't run away from it. They don't understand. So they think, okay, we'll enjoy. But eventually you have to come back again. You can't run away from that. And we see here, it's not that if we worship the demigods with a desire, it may not always be fulfilled. Here, Maharaj Anga, he worshipped, and the demigods didn't come to accept the offering. So we can see the demigods, if worshipping them, it may or may not fulfill our desire. And why? One, it may be because that is not in our destiny. We're not destined to get a particular thing. So even if you worship the devatas, the demigods, they can't do anything. And the second reason is sometimes, if someone invited your entire family for a particular function and they don't invite your father and they know your whole family, you might not go because they didn't invite your father. Why would you, they didn't respect your father, why would you go for that function? So similarly, if Krishna is not worshipped in the yajna, then the devatas, the demigods may not come. Now, if you take, for example, in a tree, there's some good fruit and bad fruit. Now, the tree is the balance of your karma, let's say. So you've got good fruit and bad fruit. And let's say something bad is happening, you're getting some bad fruits, so you worship the demigods. And what they can do is they can, instead of giving you the bad fruit, they give you the good fruit. And you're, okay, well, the demigods fulfill my desire. But if you're not destined, so if you're not destined to have a son, that fruit is not on the tree, that good fruit is not on the tree. So the demigods cannot give you that fruit because that's not part of it's not your destiny. But Krishna, he can do it. He can just wipe away all the bad fruit. He can create a fruit that's not on the tree. So Krishna can fulfill your desires even though you're not destined. We see that in the pastime of King Anga. He was not destined to have a son. And the devatas, they can't do it because that's not his destiny. So they can't give him that fruit. But Krishna, he can make the possible impossible and impossible possible. So here the sages are giving King Anga some good advice. They're saying, worship Krishna, do yajna for Krishna. Why? Because he is the master of all the demigods. And even though you're not destined to, because he becomes pleased when you worship him. Yajna is for the pleasure of Krishna. So if you please Krishna, then he can fulfill all the desires. And there's the famous verse in Bhagavatam that we've heard a number of times the last few weeks. Akama sarva kamova moksha kama udarati tivrena bhakti yogena sevate yajate purusham param yajeta purusham param. Whether you have no desires, or you're full of material desires, or even if you want impersonal liberation, better you go to Krishna instead of going to others. So instead of worshipping Brahma, Shiva, Ganesh, Durga, better you go to Krishna. Even if you're full of desires, doesn't matter. And we see in the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, he had a desire, material desire, and then he went to Krishna, but that desire was spiritualized. And what happens when, so Krishna explains again, in this life we have to do yajna. And what happens when we do yajna? It's a very scientific process. So Krishna becomes pleased when we do yajna. When Krishna is pleased, the demigods automatically become pleased. And when the demigods get pleased, we have rains. From rains, we get grains. And then all our material necessities are taken care of. So just by pleasing Krishna, all the demigods get satisfied and all our material necessities get taken care of. And if one doesn't work for the satisfaction of Vishnu, one doesn't do yajna for Vishnu, then what happens? Bhagavad Krishna explains, yajnata karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. So work has to be performed as a sacrifice of Vishnu. And if you don't, then it binds you to the material world. So any work that is not done as yajna for Krishna, pleasing for Krishna, will bind us to this material world. Either good or bad karma, but it binds us. The work for Krishna liberates us. Yajna for Krishna is liberating. And we can see this in our, Srila Prabhupada says, any person who has dedicated his life for the satisfaction of Krishna is the best performer of this yajna. And Srila Prabhupada said, this is the whole program for the conditioned soul. By performance of yajna, conditioned souls gradually become Krishna conscious and they become godly. And this is the program that Srila Prabhupada has set out for us. Our whole life is dedicated for the pleasure of Krishna. And this is yajna. You can see 24 hours a day, devotees are engaged in Krishna service. From the time we wake up, we're taking bath, not for ourselves, we're taking bath so that we purify ourselves, and then we're going to start worshipping Krishna, doing japa, reading books, reading scriptures, cooking for the Lord, offering for the Lord, making garlands for the Lord, serving devotees, thinking about how to preach, thinking about how to serve our spiritual master. So 24 hours a day we are thinking about Krishna. Is there a time that we can't think about Krishna? We may not, but is there a time where it's practically not possible to think about Krishna in the 24 hours? How about when we're sleeping? Can we think of Krishna? It's difficult to control when you're sleeping. So Prabhupada had a solution for that. Prabhupada's advice was read Krishna book before you sleep. So you read Krishna book before you sleep, and then at night you dream of Krishna. Because that's the last thing you read before you sleep. Then your whole night. 24 hours a day, Krishna Prabhupada has come up with this great, this wonderful process of pleasing Krishna. 24 hours a day. Srila Prabhupada said this is a great art, but this process requires an expert guide, not something that we just do on our own. And Maharaj Anga had the guide, he was guided by the sages in his assembly. They were giving him good advice. So this process is meant for everyone, but not everyone will take it up. So those who are intelligent will take it up, but those who are not intelligent will not. So it's described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishnam Sango Pashtra Parshadam Yagne Sankirtane Praye Yajantihi Sumedashta. Says those who are intelligent, who have how down. What will they do? They will worship the Lord. In which form? Krishna Varnam. Krishna Varnam is Varnayati, one who's always chanting or glorifying Krishna. So this Lord who comes and he's always glorifying Krishna. He's Krishna himself, but he's glorifying Krishna, always chanting Krishna. Trisha Krishnam, he is Krishna, but not blackish in color. And he comes with his Sangha, Upanga, Astra, and Parshadam. He comes with all his associates. And he comes with a weapon. What is the weapon? So the Lord is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and what is the weapon he comes with? Yes, with the holy name. And another weapon that he comes with, as Jiva Goswami explains, is his beautiful golden form. That's his weapon. And he says that in this beautiful golden form, everything is there. All the demigods are all accompanied in that golden form of Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one who is intelligent, he will worship that Yajna Purush, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with the Yajna of Sankirtan, Yajna Sankirtane Praya. And the Yajna Purush himself, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, comes to teach us this process. This is the month of Damodar. So as we keep lots of Damodar programs, and we're repeatedly discussing the pastimes of how Mother Yashoda tied Lord Damodar, how Krishna was naughty, broke the butter pot, and then he ran and Mother Yashoda chased him. And there's one a point that came to mind while just repeatedly discussing this pastime. When Mother Yashoda was looking for Krishna, she attended to the milk and she came back. And she couldn't find Krishna, and she found butter, yogurt and butter all over the floor. She wanted to catch Krishna. She wanted to teach Krishna a lesson, to punish Krishna. So she took a stick in her hand and she was going to look for Krishna, but where would she find Krishna? Because Nanda Maharaj living in a palace. So where would she go? Which direction would she go to search for Krishna? She can call out, but Krishna is not. He's hiding from her. He won't respond. So Krishna was standing on the pool of butter and yogurt, and he was walking. There were his footprints leading up to Krishna. So Krishna himself was showing how to find me. And this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He himself is coming as Lord, and he's showing us the way, and all we need to follow how to do this Sankirtan Yajna. And Srila Prabhupada, some quotes about this process of Sankirtan Yajna. Srila Prabhupada says, keep Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's deity, chant and dance, and your life will be successful. The Prabhupada says, Radha Krishna worship is difficult. But Panchatattva worship, they are worshipped very easily with the Sankirtan Yajna. So that's something to think about. And Sankirtan Yajna Sankirtan means coming together, Samyak Kirtan, coming together and glorifying the Lord. And by doing this, our glorification is not just for half an hour a day, an hour a day. It's 24 hours a day we're doing this Sankirtan Yajna, as we discussed how Srila Prabhupada has given us this program. Srila Prabhupada says, we are not dull matter. We've got hands and legs just like everyone else. So we are also engaged We're engaging all our senses. Others are engaging their senses in sense gratification. But we're engaging everything in Krishna's service. And then Srila Prabhupada was talking about himself. He said, I'm an 80-year-old man, but I'm busy all the time. I'm traveling all over the world, writing books at night and talking to visitors. So it's not that, so he's constant, 24 hours a day engaged in this Sankirtan Yajna. And this Sankirtan Yajna can be done in any stage of life. Now, other types of Yajna would require, you need a pure place, you need qualified brahmanas. And where do you find that brahmanas in this day and age? There are many brahmanas here, but how many of them you can start a fire with mantra or can bring back, give a new body to an old animal, young body? So all that is not possible. And how many poetries can you have? It said in like King Anga's time, there'll be one brahmana employed just to make sure that the other brahmanas are chanting the mantra properly. Is there any mistake? So all that is impossible. In this yuga, Kali Yuga, everyone is a Sudra. Kali, Sudra Sambhava. So everyone's born, Janmana Jayati Sudra. Everyone's born a Sudra in this yuga. So how are we going to get billions of Sudras to do a sacrifice? And pure ingredients, it's almost impossible to get. So in so many ways, the other types of yajna are very difficult to perform in this day and age. The Sankirtan Yajna can be performed by anyone. It doesn't matter whichever state of life you're in. You don't have to be a brahmana. You can chant the holy name anywhere. Nam Nam Akadi Bahada Nija Sarva Shaktatrarpita Niyamita Smarani Nakala. Anytime, any place you can chant Krishna. You can do this yajna. So that's the most practical form of yajna in this day and age. And how this yajna is even more important than the other types of yajna. Srila Prabhupada explains the pastime in Vrindavan temple. At the temple opening or installation of Shri Krishna Balaram, Srila Prabhupada had employed many different brahmanas to chant the different mantras, do yajnas. But then Srila Prabhupada says, we observed all these Vedic ritual ceremonies to please the unintelligent man. This Krishna Balaram temple inauguration, local brahmanas would not accept our Western brahmanas doing all these. So we had to engage all these brahmanas to do costly pujas. But he said, the members of our society performed loud kirtan, and I consider that more important than all those Vedic rituals. So this age of Kali, Sankirtan Yajna alone is enough. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it was just towards the end of Antya Leela is the last chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's 8 verses, the 6 Shashtakam prayers are also mentioned. I could just read this. Sankirtana hoite papa samsara nasan chitta suddhi sarva bhakti sadhana udgama. By performing congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, one can destroy the sinful condition of material existence, purify the unclean heart, and awaken all varieties of devotional service. So this sinful condition of material existence is there everywhere. The entire society, we're all knowingly, unknowingly committing so many sinful reactions. And by performing this congregational chanting, it can destroy all of them, all those sinful activities, and Krishna Bhakti can arise in us. So therefore, it's the performance of congregational chanting, going out on the streets and doing this Harinam Sankirtan is not, King Anga did it for one son. But if we go there and we do this yajna, we can deliver the whole world can be delivered just by this Sankirtan, not just for one person's benefit, for the whole world's benefit. Srila Prabhupada described how in Kolkata there was once a plague. Not sure whether which year it was, 1800, and the devotees of the Gaudiya Math, they went out and they did Harinam Sankirtan on the streets of Kolkata. And very soon that plague disappeared. That's what we need to do for COVID. We go out and we do Harinam Sankirtan all over the world. If devotees go out and chant and dance in the streets. This is practical, we can try. And definitely it will work, but it's a matter of faith. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes, now whenever you have a yajna, you're offering ghee and different ingredients, and there's a fire burning, and there are lots of different flames. So similarly, the Sankirtan yajna is also a fire, and there are different flames in that yajna. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada has explained that this fire has got 7 flames. The first prayer of Sikshashtakam, Cheto Darpanamarjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvatpanam Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadu Jivanam Anandham Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So it's described that the 7 flames are described here. Cheto Darpanam, the first flame of this fire of Sankirtan. It cleanses the heart, the dust on the mirror of our heart. Cheto Darpanam cleanses. And then what happens? It reveals our original form. It reveals that Krishna Bhakti in all of us. This Krishna Bhakti is not something that's found outside. It's already in everyone's heart. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunaya Shravanadi Sutite. This is already in everyone's heart, and it just needs to be cleansed. So this process of Harinam Sankirtan cleanses our heart and gets rid of all the different dirty things, the anartha. That's the first flame. And the second flame is Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvarpanam. It extinguishes the forest fire of suffering, misery. We have started this fire. No one else started this fire. Krishna didn't start the fire. We started it. We decided, I want to enjoy myself. Why should Krishna be the enjoyer? So we wanted to enjoy separate from Krishna, and we started this fire. And who's going to put out the fire? We can try. We're trying to get rid of this misery, the suffering. We're trying so many different ways, but we fail. But this Sankirtan Yajna will provide a shower. The kind of forest fire, a little bit of water won't do. You need a downpour. So Sankirtan Yajna is like that downpour of rain that will extinguish the forest fire. The third flame is Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. So once a heart is cleansed and the forest fire of material existence, the suffering is gone, then some bliss starts awakening. It says, so this is, when there's moonlight, it says that the lotus flower starts opening. So the third flame is like that. The Sankirtan Yajna, it can awaken our relationship with Krishna. It awakens our realization that we are eternal servants of Krishna, and Krishna is our eternal master. And Vidya Vadu Jivanam, the holy name for the Sankirtan Yajna, what it does is it gives us, it compares knowledge to a newly married bride. When there's a newly married bride, when you just married, the husband gives shelter to this wife. This wife comes and her only shelter. So therefore, this transcendental knowledge is like a bride, and it only becomes fully realized when it is in the process of Sankirtan Yajna. Otherwise, you can read and read and read, but that realization will not come unless you do Sankirtan Yajna. Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. This process, Sankirtan Yajna, is like an ocean of bliss. And it's an unending, unlimited ocean of bliss. Pratipadam Purnamritam. The Sankirtan Yajna helps us taste the nectar. And this is the nectar that we are all hankering for. So this is like nectar, and it gives us, the nectar is there, but the Harinam Sankirtan allows us to taste that nectar. And Sarvatma Sapanam, it gives us pure love of Krishna. So those are the 7 flames of Sankirtan Yajna compared to. So Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtana. And then Harinam Sankirtan spreads throughout in all directions and creates victory over ignorance, over Maya. So this is the process of Sankirtan Yajna, which is the recommended process for this age. Simplest way for us to perfect our lives and achieve love of Godhead. Jai Shri Prema Yuga Dharma Sankirtan Yajna Ki Jai. Krishna. Thank you for patiently tolerating, listening. Any comments, corrections, questions? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kailash is in the spiritual world. Brahma's abode is in the material world. Yeah. Oh, from Goloka Vrindavan, all the different planets of Vishnu, the different avatars. Kailash, yes, he's in the spiritual, at the border. So sometimes it is described, or well, maybe a question. So should we worship or have devatas on our altar when we worship? Should we have devatas, pictures of demigods? Is it necessary to have pictures of demigods on our altar when we are worshiping the Lord? Because sometimes we still do that. It's our past conditioning. So sometimes we still have. So what do you think? Mm-hmm. Most people who worship Lord Shiva, they are not after spiritual advancement, they're after material desire. Most people, when they worship Lord Shiva, it's for something material, it's not for a spiritual purpose. But then Lord Shiva himself is meditating on Krishna, so why not? And we are worshipping in the form of Panchatattva. Advaitacharya, he's incarnation of Sadashiva and Mahavishnu, so we're all really worshipping. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described, Jiva Goswami says, his astra, his weapon is his beautiful form. And in his form, all the devatas are present there. So would there be a need to separately worship Shiva? Something to think about. And in Bhagavatam, it is said, it describes the spiritual master. It says, Sarva Deva Mayo Guru. The spiritual master is the representative of all the demigods. Why would we worship just one Lord Ganesh or one demigod when there are 33 million? How about the rest? Do we not owe them gratitude also? Because they're all in charge of material affairs. So why one particular representative and not the other? But if we worship the spiritual master, he's the sum total representation of all the 33 million demigods. So all of that is taken care of. We see here in the purport, just by worshipping Krishna or the spiritual master, then we are pleased. Krishna is pleased, the whole world is pleased, the whole creation is pleased. It's difficult to please your wife, your children, family members, what to speak of demigods. But by worshipping Krishna, everyone is pleased. So that's the simplest process. Any comment? Very much. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpataruvesha kripa sindhu